The sun was shining brightly over the city park that afternoon, casting long, warm rays across the green grass. Children were running around laughing and chasing each other, their voices mixing with the distant hum of cars and the soft rustling of leaves in the gentle wind. Families were spread out on blankets, sharing snacks and enjoying the peaceful day. Among them, a little girl walked slowly, holding a small, worn-out backpack close to her chest. She looked tired, and her steps were careful, almost cautious. Her clothes were simple, nothing fancy, but her eyes sparkled with a quiet hope that made her look fragile yet brave. She walked past swings and slides, watching the other children play. A small smile crossed her face, but it quickly faded when she saw that her legs felt weaker than usual. Her breathing was a bit heavy, and she paused to rest on a nearby stone. From a distance, a man sat alone on a wooden bench, neatly dressed in a suit that looked expensive. He had a laptop open on his lap and a coffee cup beside him. His hair was slightly graying at the temples, and there was a serious, almost distant look in his eyes. The park around him seemed full of life, yet he sat quietly, lost in his own world. He appeared to be a man who had everything, yet carried a certain loneliness with him, the kind that no money could fix. The little girl watched him for a moment, then took a deep breath. She wanted to sit down, but the bench seemed far away from the busy playground where other children laughed. Summoning all her courage, she walked slowly toward him. Her small shoes made soft tapping sounds on the pavement. When she reached the edge of the bench, she hesitated, looking up at the man with wide, innocent eyes. "Excuse me," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper.
"Can I sit here?"
The man looked down at her, slightly startled. He wasn't used to being approached like this, especially by strangers. For a moment, he just stared, unsure of how to respond. The little girl's eyes were steady, polite, and a little shy, but there was a gentle courage in them that made him hesitate. Finally, he nodded, and she carefully lowered herself onto the bench beside him. She placed her backpack on the ground and shifted slightly to make room for herself. There was a moment of silence, filled only by the sounds of the park. The man took a sip of his coffee, his eyes still on her, studying her with a mix of curiosity and something he didn't fully understand. The little girl fidgeted slightly, adjusting her small hands in her lap, then looked up at him again. "My name is Lily," she said softly. "I like to come here sometimes. It's quiet." The man's lips curved into a faint, almost unnoticeable smile. "I see. I'm just here for a little break," he replied, his voice calm and reserved. "It's a nice day, isn't it?" Lily nodded, looking around at the trees swaying gently in the wind. "Yes, the leaves are very pretty, and the birds are singing. I like watching them." He studied her for a moment longer. There was something about her innocence, her way of noticing small, simple things that most adults ignored, that made him pause. He was used to the rush of business meetings, phone calls, and constant planning, but here was a child, so small, yet so aware of the little joys around her. "Do you come here often?" he asked, closing his laptop for a moment and giving her his attention. "Sometimes," Lily said, "when I feel like it, when I'm not feeling too tired." He noticed the slight weariness in her tone, the way her shoulders slumped a little. Something inside him stirred, a sense of concern he hadn't felt in a long time. He cleared his throat. "Are you feeling okay today?" Lily hesitated, then nodded. "I'm okay. Just a little tired. I have to be careful with my legs. But I like sitting here. It makes me feel happy." The man nodded slowly, understanding a little more. There was a quiet dignity in the way she spoke, despite her obvious struggles. He found himself wanting to ask more to understand her story, but he wasn't sure how to begin. Instead, he said something simple. "It's good to find a place that makes you happy. Even adults need that sometimes." Lily's face lit up slightly at his words, and she looked at him with a small, shy smile. "Yes, I like coming here. It's peaceful, and I can watch people." He chuckled softly, surprising even himself. He hadn't laughed in a while, not genuinely. Watching people can be interesting. You can learn a lot about them, even from a distance. The little girl's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Do you like watching people?" He looked at her, then around the park. For the first time that day, he allowed himself to notice the little details. The way the wind moved the leaves, the way children's laughter carried across the grass, the way families shared small moments together. "I do," he admitted. "Sometimes it's the best part of the day." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "I like watching people too. Sometimes I wonder what their lives are like." He smiled, feeling a strange connection forming between them. There was a quiet honesty in her words, a gentle openness that reminded him of someone he had once loved dearly. He realized how long it had been since he had felt this kind of warmth from someone so young and genuine. "Would you like to tell me about yourself?" he asked cautiously, unsure if it was appropriate, yet feeling drawn to her story. Lily hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I like reading books and I like drawing. I like the park because it's quiet and I can sit and think. I have to go to the hospital sometimes, but I like coming here when I can." He listened, absorbing every word. There was a strength in her despite her sickness that was remarkable. He noticed the small bravery it must take for her to walk alone, to face her fears and fatigue, and still find joy in the simple things around her. "It sounds like you're very brave," he said softly. "It's not easy to do what you do." Lily looked at him, her eyes wide. "Do you think so?" "Yes," he said firmly. "I think it takes a lot of courage to keep going even when things are hard." She smiled, a small but genuine smile that seemed to brighten the bench they shared. For a moment they both sat in silence, listening to the park around them. He felt a calmness he hadn't felt in years, a gentle peace that came from sharing this quiet moment with someone who truly appreciated it. Then, Lily reached into her backpack and pulled out a small, worn notebook. She opened it carefully and showed him some drawings, simple sketches of the park, the trees, the birds, and even a few stick figures of people playing. They were not perfect, but they were filled with life and emotion. "These are nice," he said, genuinely impressed. "You have a good eye for details." Lily blushed slightly, pleased by the compliment. "Thank you. I like drawing what I see. It makes me happy." He nodded, feeling a warmth spreading in his chest. He had spent so many years focusing on work, money, and business, but here was a small child, teaching him about the simple joys of life. Joys he had forgotten. "Would you like to draw me?" he asked with a hint of humor in his voice. "I promise I won't move too much." Lily giggled softly, a sound so sweet it made him smile fully for the first time that day. "Okay," she said, carefully sketching his outline in her notebook. He watched her work, noticing the careful attention she gave to every line, every detail, and feeling an unexpected pride in being part of her little world. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a golden glow over the park, they continued to sit together. There was no rush, no distractions, just two people sharing a simple human moment. He felt a connection forming, one that he hadn't expected and hadn't known he needed. And Lily, despite her tired body and quiet struggles, felt a warmth in her heart, a small happiness that had come from a simple act of courage, asking a stranger if she could sit beside him. The park around them continued to buzz with life, but on that small wooden bench a bond had quietly begun. It was a bond built on kindness, understanding, and the recognition that sometimes even strangers could bring a little light into each other's lives. And neither of them would ever forget that afternoon when a simple question, "Can I sit here?" changed the course of their day and perhaps their lives. Over the next few days, the little girl returned to the park. The sun shone in the same golden way, and the park was filled with the usual sounds of children playing, families chatting, and birds singing. She walked slowly, carrying her small backpack and taking careful steps, but her eyes held a quiet determination. Today she was not alone in her thoughts. She knew he would be there, the man who had let her sit beside him and had spoken kindly to her. The thought brought a flutter of excitement to her chest. She wished she could tell someone how kind he had been, but she knew her parents would worry too much if she mentioned it, so she kept it to herself. The man was there, just as she had expected, sitting on the same bench with his laptop. He looked up as she approached, and for a moment his eyes softened in recognition. He closed his laptop and offered her a polite smile. "Hello again," he said. His voice was calm, but there was a hint of warmth that hadn't been there the first time. "Hello," she replied, a small smile forming on her lips. She carefully lowered herself onto the bench beside him, adjusting her backpack to sit comfortably. There was a moment of silence, the kind that is not uncomfortable but filled with an understanding between two people who are slowly getting to know each other. The man took a sip of his coffee and watched her quietly. She looked around at the park, then back at him. "Do you come here every day?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Whenever I can. It helps me think. And it's peaceful, like you said last time." She nodded, pleased that he remembered. "I like coming here too. Sometimes it feels like the whole world is far away. He glanced at her, noticing the small courage in her voice, the way she spoke despite her obvious struggles. It's good to have a place like that. A quiet place where you can just be yourself. Lily hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Do you get lonely sometimes?" The question caught him off guard. He looked down at his hands, then back at her. There was a pause, long enough for the sounds of the park to fill the silence. "Yes," he admitted finally. "Sometimes. Even when you have people around, you can feel lonely." Her eyes widened slightly, showing both surprise and understanding. "I know how that feels. When I'm sick and have to stay in the hospital, I feel very lonely. But when I come here, I feel a little better." He nodded slowly, feeling a connection forming. It was strange, he thought, how a small child could make him feel understood in a way he hadn't experienced in years. He leaned back slightly, resting his coffee cup on the bench. "It takes a lot of strength to keep going when things are hard," he said. "I think you're very brave." Lily smiled shyly, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "Do you really think so?" "Yes," he said firmly. "Bravery isn't always about doing big things. Sometimes it's just about facing your day, even when it's difficult. You do that every day?" The little girl looked at him thoughtfully, then pulled her small notebook from her backpack. She had been carrying it with her for a while, and today she wanted to share more of her drawings. Carefully, she opened the notebook and showed him sketches she had made over the past few days. Trees, flowers, birds, and even stick figures of people she had seen in the park. Her hand trembled slightly, but there was pride in her eyes. The man leaned closer, studying the drawings. He was genuinely impressed. "These are wonderful," he said. "You have a good eye for detail. You see things that most people miss." Lily's smile grew wider. "Thank you. I like drawing what I see. It makes me happy." He nodded, feeling a warmth spreading through him. In her simple joy, he found something he had been missing, a reminder of how beautiful the small moments in life could be. He realized that despite all his success, he had forgotten to notice these little things. She had reminded him in the gentlest way. They talked quietly, sharing stories about small things. Favorite birds, the colors of flowers, the shapes of clouds. Sometimes they didn't speak at all, simply enjoying the quiet presence of one another. It was a rare and peaceful connection, something that felt more meaningful than any business deal he had ever made. After a while, Lily leaned back and sighed softly. "I wish I could stay here forever," she said, almost to herself. The man looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "Sometimes the places we love are like little pieces of happiness we can carry with us," he said. "Even if we can't stay forever, we can visit when we need it most." She nodded, understanding his meaning in a way that was deeper than her years. "Yes, that's true," she said quietly. He noticed her small hands trembling slightly and reached into his pocket, pulling out a small candy wrapper he had saved from his coffee break. "Would you like this?" he asked, holding it out to her. She hesitated, then accepted it with a grateful smile. "Thank you," she said softly. It was a small gesture, but it held more meaning than he realized. In that moment, he felt a sense of purpose that had been missing in his life. He realized that small acts of kindness could have a profound impact, especially on someone so vulnerable and brave. Over the next hour, they continued to talk, laugh quietly, and share stories. He told her about his favorite books and some of the places he had traveled. She listened intently, asking curious questions and marveling at the stories he shared. In return, she told him about her favorite stories, her small adventures in the hospital and the dreams she held for the future. He found himself laughing more freely than he had in years, feeling a lightness he hadn't expected. Her curiosity, honesty, and courage reminded him of what it felt like to connect with someone without pretense or expectation. She was teaching him in her small, gentle way about the importance of presence, kindness, and attention. As the afternoon wore on, the sunlight began to soften, casting a warm glow across the park. Families began packing up, and the children's laughter started to fade as they were called home. Yet on their small bench, the connection between the man and the little girl felt strong and unbroken. They had shared something simple yet profound, a quiet understanding, a mutual respect, and the beginning of trust. Lily closed her notebook and carefully put it back in her backpack. She stood up slowly, her legs tired but steady. "I should go home now," she said softly. "But I will come back tomorrow if it's okay." The man nodded, a small smile on his face. "I would like that. You're always welcome here." She smiled, her eyes shining with a mix of gratitude and happiness. "Thank you," she said, then waved before turning to walk slowly toward the park exit. He watched her go, feeling a strange emptiness in the bench beside him, but also a quiet hope. He realized that she had brought a warmth and light into his life that he hadn't known he was missing. It was the beginning of something unexpected, something that would slowly change both of their lives. When he finally closed his laptop and stood up, he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. The park was quiet now, and the shadows of the trees stretched across the grass. He took a deep breath, savoring the calm and the lingering presence of the little girl's courage and joy. She had reminded him that life's simplest moments, shared kindness, curiosity, and attention, were sometimes the most meaningful. As he walked toward the park exit, he glanced back once more, hoping to see her small figure again. Even if he didn't, he knew that the encounter had already begun to change him. He was learning slowly but surely that life was not just about work and success, it was about connection, compassion, and the quiet joy found in the presence of someone who mattered, even if only for a short while. As the days turned into weeks, the little girl and the businessman began to see each other regularly in the park. It became a quiet routine that neither of them had expected, but both had come to cherish. Every day she would walk slowly toward the same bench, her small backpack bouncing slightly on her shoulders. And he would already be there, laptop closed, coffee finished, waiting for her arrival. Their greetings had become familiar and warm, a small comfort in both of their lives. Today the air was cooler, carrying a slight crispness that hinted at the coming autumn. The leaves on the trees were starting to turn, painting the park in shades of gold and red. The little girl paused at the edge of the path, watching the colors dance in the wind. She felt a small surge of happiness as she noticed the man sitting on the bench, looking up from a notebook he had brought today instead of his laptop. He smiled as she approached, and she waved, a spark of excitement in her eyes. "Hello," she called softly. "Hello," he replied, his smile widening. "I'm glad you came today." She carefully lowered herself onto the bench beside him, adjusting her backpack and shifting to get comfortable. There was a quiet familiarity in the air, a sense of ease that came from shared moments and trust. For a while, they simply watched the park, noticing small details. The way the sunlight filtered through the leaves, a squirrel hopping along the fence, children running past with kites fluttering in the wind. After a few minutes, the little girl spoke. "I like sitting here with you. It feels safe." He nodded slowly, touched by her words. "I feel the same way. Sometimes it's nice to just sit and not worry about anything else." She smiled softly, feeling a warmth spread in her chest. There was something about this man that made her feel understood, a gentle presence that was patient and kind. It was different from the busy, rushed world of the hospital or home, where people often treated her with pity or worry. Here she was just herself, and that felt special. "Can I show you something?" she asked, reaching into her backpack and pulling out her small notebook. She opened it carefully, revealing pages filled with drawings she had made over the past few weeks. There were sketches of the park, the trees, the birds, and even people she had noticed walking by. Each drawing was simple but full of life and emotion. He leaned closer, studying the pages with genuine interest. "These are wonderful," he said. "You have a talent for seeing things that others might miss." She blushed slightly, pleased by his words. "Thank you. I like noticing small things. It makes me happy." He nodded, feeling a deep sense of admiration. There was a quiet strength in her, a courage that shone through in her drawings and her gentle, thoughtful words. He realized that she was teaching him something he hadn't learned in years, that life's beauty often lay in the small, quiet moments that people overlooked. As they talked, she began to share stories about her time in the hospital. She spoke of the nurses who had been kind to her, the small victories she celebrated each day, and the moments when she felt scared or lonely. He listened attentively, never interrupting, simply offering a comforting presence and occasional words of encouragement. "It must be hard sometimes," he said gently, "but you're very brave." She nodded, her eyes thoughtful. "I try to be. Sometimes it's hard, but I like finding small things that make me happy. Drawing, sitting here, talking with you." He felt a lump in his throat, overwhelmed by a mix of emotions. He had spent so many years focused on work, on achievements and responsibilities, that he had forgotten what it meant to connect with someone so purely. Her courage and innocence reminded him of something he had lost long ago, something he had buried under years of business and loneliness. "You remind me that life is not just about work or being busy," he said softly. "Sometimes it's about these moments, about noticing the beauty around us and sharing it with someone else." She smiled, a quiet, understanding smile. "Yes, I like these moments too. They make me feel strong, even when I'm sick." For a while they sat in comfortable silence, watching the park and the changing leaves. The little girl leaned back slightly, her hands resting in her lap, feeling safe and content. He observed her quietly, noticing the determination in her eyes and the way she faced each day with courage and curiosity. It was inspiring, and he found himself wanting to be a better person, to care more, to be present in a way he hadn't been for a long time. Then she spoke again, her voice softer this time. "Do you get sad sometimes?" He looked at her, surprised by the question. "Yes," he admitted. "Sometimes I do. But talking about it, being with people, noticing the good things around me, it helps." She nodded, understanding in a way that was beyond her years. "I get sad too. Sometimes I wish things were easier, but then I find little things that make me happy, and it helps me keep going." He felt a deep admiration for her strength and resilience. She was teaching him, without even realizing it, about hope and courage. He realized that he wanted to be part of her life, not just as a passerby in the park, but as someone who could offer support, care, and stability. As the afternoon progressed, he suggested they take a short walk around the park. She agreed eagerly, and they moved slowly, side by side, talking about the shapes of the clouds, the sounds of birds, and the small adventures of the day. He found himself laughing more freely than he had in years, enjoying the simplicity of their shared time. They stopped by a small fountain, where the water sparkled in the sunlight. She watched the ripples with fascination, and he joined her, pointing out the reflections of the trees and the sky. It was a small, ordinary moment, but it felt significant. They were sharing something real, something human and unforced. After a while, they returned to the bench, both feeling a sense of calm and connection. She pulled out her notebook again, showing him more drawings she had made during her walks around the park. He admired each one, asking questions and encouraging her to continue. She felt proud, happy to have someone who truly noticed and appreciated her efforts. As the sun began to dip lower, casting long shadows across the grass, she realized it was time to go home. She packed her notebook carefully into her backpack, her hands trembling slightly from both excitement and fatigue. "I should go now," she said softly, "but I will come back tomorrow." He nodded, a small smile on his face. "I'll be here." "You're always welcome." She smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart that she had not felt for a long time. "Thank you. I like coming here with you." He watched her walk slowly toward the park exit, feeling a mixture of emotions. There was a sense of emptiness in the bench beside him, but also a quiet joy. He had found a connection, a reason to slow down and appreciate life in a way he hadn't in years. She had reminded him of the importance of kindness, attention, and shared moments. As he packed up his notebook and prepared to leave, he felt a sense of anticipation for tomorrow, for the continued conversations, the shared laughter, and the quiet companionship that had become a meaningful part of his days. He realized that this little girl, fragile yet courageous, had already begun to change him. She had shown him that life's true value was found not in wealth or achievements, but in connection, understanding, and the courage to face each day with hope and curiosity. He walked toward the park exit slowly, glancing back one more time, hoping to see her small figure once more. Even if she was not there, he knew that the bond they were forming was already shaping his life in a quiet, profound way. He felt a newfound appreciation for the simple joys of life, for the courage of a small child, and for the quiet moments that, when shared, could bring warmth and healing to even the most guarded hearts. The day was gray and quiet, with clouds covering most of the sky and a cool wind blowing through the park. The little girl moved slowly along the path, her small backpack heavy on her shoulders. Her steps were careful and her face showed a mix of determination and fatigue. Today was harder than usual. She had spent a morning at the hospital and her legs felt weak. Still, she wanted to come to the park, to see the man who had become a friend and a source of comfort over the past weeks. The businessman was already sitting on the bench, his coat pulled tight against the cold. He had brought his notebook again but was not writing. He was simply watching the park, noticing how the world moved quietly even on a gray day. When he saw her approaching, he immediately got up and moved a little closer, concern flashing in his eyes. "Hello," he said gently, his voice carrying warmth. "Are you feeling okay today?" She nodded, though her smile was weak. "I'm okay. Just a little tired. The hospital was long today." He reached out and took her hand gently, guiding her to the bench. "Let's sit for a while. You can rest here." She sat carefully and he placed her backpack beside her. There was a quiet moment as they both watched the park. The trees swayed in the wind, their leaves rustling softly, and the distant laughter of children seemed far away on this gray afternoon. He noticed how small and delicate she seemed today, how her body was fighting more than just the challenges of walking. He felt a protective instinct rise within him, one he hadn't realized he still had. "Do you want to tell me about your day?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then spoke slowly. "It was tiring. Some tests, some medicine, and I had to stay still a lot. But the nurses were nice. They tried to make me laugh." He listened carefully, nodding. "You are very strong. Not many children would go through that and still smile." She looked down at her hands, a faint blush on her cheeks. "I try. I want to be brave." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small wrapped candy, offering it to her. For being brave, she accepted it, her eyes brightening. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. This small act, this simple recognition of her courage, meant more than he could express. Over the past weeks, he had come to realize that he wanted to do more for her than just sit in the park. He wanted to help, to support her, to make her days a little brighter. "Would you like to take a short walk around the park?" he asked after a while. "It might make you feel a little better." She nodded eagerly, and he helped her up, steadying her as she walked slowly beside him. The path was lined with trees, their leaves swirling in the wind, and the air carried a fresh, earthy scent. He walked beside her, careful not to rush, enjoying the quiet companionship. As they walked, he asked about her favorite things, about the stories she liked to read, about the dreams she held for the future. She spoke with a soft, thoughtful voice, describing adventures she wished to have, places she wanted to see, and people she hoped to meet. He listened intently, asking gentle questions and encouraging her to imagine big and dream freely. They stopped by a small pond, where ducks floated calmly on the water. She watched them with fascination, pointing out the different colors of their feathers and the way they moved together. He joined her, crouching down to observe closely. It was a small moment, but it felt significant. In these simple shared experiences, he saw her courage, her curiosity, and her strength. "You have a wonderful imagination," he said softly. "I wish I could see the world the way you do." She smiled shyly, pleased by his words. "I like thinking about happy things. It helps me feel strong." He nodded, understanding the deeper meaning behind her words. He had spent so many years focused on business, on wealth, on achievements, that he had forgotten how to find strength in simple joys. She was teaching him in the most gentle way about resilience, hope, and the quiet power of optimism. As they continued their walk, he noticed her struggling slightly, her steps slower and more labored. Concern flashed in his eyes, and he instinctively offered his arm. "Lean on me for a bit," he said gently. She accepted, holding on to him carefully, and he guided her slowly along the path. There was a trust in her eyes, a reliance that touched him deeply. He realized how much he cared for her, how important it was for him to be there to provide support and comfort. They returned to the bench after some time, both a little tired but content. She sat down carefully, and he reached into his coat again, pulling out a small notebook and a pencil. "Would you like to draw something together?" he asked, her eyes lit up. "Yes," she exclaimed softly. They spent the next hour sketching together, sharing ideas and stories as they drew. She showed him the little details she noticed, the shapes of leaves, the way the water moved, the expressions of people passing by. He followed her lead, trying to capture what she saw in his own way, ugging softly when his drawings didn't turn out quite right. It was a time of joy, of learning, of connection. As the sky began to darken, signaling the end of the day, she realized it was time to go home. She packed her notebook carefully, her hands trembling slightly from both fatigue and excitement. "I should go now," she said softly, "but I will come back tomorrow." He nodded, a small smile on his face. "I'll be here. You're always welcome. She smiled back, feeling a warmth in her chest that had been growing over the past weeks. Thank you. I like being here with you. He watched her walk slowly toward the park exit, feeling a mixture of emotions. There was a sense of emptiness in the bench beside him, but also a quiet joy. He had found a connection, a purpose, and a reason to slow down and appreciate life in a way he hadn't in years. She had reminded him of the importance of presence, attention, and shared moments. As he packed up his notebook and prepared to leave, he reflected on how much he had grown in the past weeks. The little girl's courage, curiosity, and optimism had touched him deeply. He realized that he wanted to be a constant presence in her life, not just a passerby in the park, but someone who could offer support, care, and stability. He wanted to help her face the challenges ahead, to bring light into her days and to share in the small, joyful moments that made life meaningful. He walked toward the park exit slowly, glancing back once more, hoping to see her small figure. Even if she was not there, he knew that the bond they had formed was already shaping his life in profound ways. She had shown him that life's true value was found not in wealth or achievements, but in connection, compassion, and the courage to face each day with hope and curiosity. He felt ready to do whatever he could to help her, to support her, and to bring joy into her life, just as she had brought joy into his. The morning was crisp, with sunlight filtering through the trees and creating patches of warmth on the park paths. The little girl moved slowly but steadily toward the bench, her small backpack snug against her shoulders. She felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Today was a special day, not just another visit. Over the past weeks, her relationship with the man had grown into something comforting and important, a bond that made her feel stronger despite her illness. The businessman was already there, sitting with a notebook and a small cup of coffee. When he saw her approaching, his face brightened with a smile that seemed to push away the remnants of loneliness he often felt. "Good morning," he said warmly. "Good morning," she replied, her own smile shy but genuine. She carefully sat down beside him, adjusting her backpack and settling in. They sat for a few moments in peaceful silence, listening to the soft sounds of the park, the rustling leaves, distant laughter, and the chirping of birds. It was a quiet, ordinary moment, yet filled with a sense of calm and connection that both of them had come to treasure. "I'm glad you're here today," he said softly. "I wanted to ask you something." She looked up at him with curious eyes. "What is it?" He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I want to help you. I want to be someone you can rely on, not just here in the park, but in life. Your courage, your strength, it's inspiring. I want to make sure you have support, joy, and encouragement every day." Her eyes widened, a mix of surprise and gratitude. "Really, you'd do that for me?" He nodded. "Yes, I can't change everything, but I can help in small ways. I want you to feel safe and cared for." She felt a warmth spread through her chest. It was rare for someone to offer care so genuinely, without expecting anything in return. "Thank you," she whispered. "That means a lot." He reached into his coat and handed her a small envelope. "This is something I thought might help you, a little surprise." She carefully opened it and found a small gift, a set of colored pencils and a sketchbook, all new and bright. Her eyes lit up. "Oh, thank you. I love it." He smiled, pleased by her reaction. "I thought you might enjoy drawing more. I know how much it makes you happy." They spent the next hour sharing stories, drawing together, and laughing quietly. She showed him her favorite sketches, and he tried to follow her lead, attempting to draw birds, trees, and even the park bench they sat on. It was not perfect, but it was filled with joy and connection, and that mattered more than anything. After a while, they decided to take a slow walk around the park. She held onto his arm lightly, trusting him to guide her. They talked about her dreams, the things she wanted to see, and the adventures she hoped to have. He listened with genuine interest, encouraging her imagination and reassuring her that her dreams were important and worth pursuing. As they walked, they came across a small group of children playing with a ball. She watched them for a moment, then looked at him. "Do you think I could join them one day?" He looked at her thoughtfully. "I believe you can. You're strong and brave, and if you want to try, I'll be right here to support you." Her smile grew, a mixture of hope and courage. "Thank you," she said softly. It was not just about playing with the children. It was about believing in herself and knowing someone believed in her too. They continued their walk until they reached a quiet corner of the park, where the sunlight filtered through the trees, casting a warm glow over the grass. He suggested they sit for a while, and they both rested, enjoying the peaceful moment. She leaned back slightly, feeling content and safe in his presence. "You've changed my days," he said quietly. "Before I met you, I didn't realize how much I had forgotten about life's simple joys. You've reminded me that kindness, courage, and connection are what truly matter." Her eyes glistened with emotion. "You've changed my days too," she said softly. "Before I met you, I felt alone a lot, but now I feel happy and cared for." He reached out and gently held her hand. It was a small gesture, but it carried all the warmth, care, and promise he wanted to give her. They sat in silence for a while, simply holding on to the comfort of shared understanding. As the afternoon sun began to lower, casting long shadows across the park, he spoke again. "I want you to know that I will always be here for you, not just in the park, but in life. Whenever you need support, happiness, or encouragement, I will do what I can to help." She looked up at him, her eyes wide with trust and hope. "I believe you," she said softly. "I know you'll be there." It was a promise, unspoken but deeply felt, that would shape both of their lives. Over the next hour, they shared more drawings, stories, and quiet laughter, each moment building a bond stronger than either had expected. She felt seen and valued, and he felt a sense of purpose and joy that had been missing for years. As the day came to a close, she knew it was time to go home. She packed her notebook and pencil case, feeling tired but happy. "I should go now," she said softly. "But I will come back soon." He nodded, a gentle smile on his face. "I'll be here, always." She smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart that would stay with her long after she left the park. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." He watched her walk slowly toward the exit, carrying her small backpack and the joy she had found in their shared time. Even as she disappeared from view, he felt the bond they had formed, a connection that would continue to grow and influence both their lives. It was a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness and courage could create the most profound changes. After she left, he stayed on the bench for a while, reflecting on the past weeks. The little girl had brought light, hope, and purpose into his life. She had reminded him that life's true value was not in wealth, work, or success, but in connection, compassion, and the simple joys that could be shared with someone who mattered. He felt ready to continue supporting her, guiding her, and being a constant presence in her life. Days turned into weeks, and their bond grew stronger. He attended small events with her, helped her with practical needs, and encouraged her in her daily challenges. She, in turn, thrived under his care and guidance, finding joy, confidence, and resilience she hadn't felt before. Together, they created a small world of kindness, support, and shared happiness, proving that love and connection could be found in the most unexpected places. One afternoon, as they sat on the familiar bench watching the sun dip below the horizon, he turned to her and said softly, "I'm proud of you. You've grown so much, and you continue to inspire me every day." She looked up at him, her eyes shining with gratitude and affection. "And I'm proud of you too," she said. "You've shown me so much kindness, and you've made me feel strong." They shared a quiet moment of understanding, knowing that their lives had been changed forever by a chance meeting, a simple question, and the courage to connect. The park, once just a place of routine and solitude, had become a place of growth, healing, and joy. In the weeks and months that followed, their relationship continued to flourish. He became a stable, caring presence in her life, attending important moments, supporting her treatments, and celebrating her victories. She became a source of light and hope in his life, reminding him of the importance of kindness, empathy, and the small joys that make life meaningful. Their story was one of quiet miracles, a sick little girl asking a simple question, a lonely businessman opening his heart, and together discovering that connection, care, and shared moments could change lives in ways neither had ever imagined. In the end, they both learned that sometimes the most extraordinary changes come from the simplest acts